Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom Podcast. I'm really excited about today's guest, Gene Lee, and he's the author of the LA5C Framework and Lean Agile Mastery. So we're going to talk about mastering the 5 C's for customer-centric success. I'm always interested in new concepts, terms, so we're going to talk about blue ocean strategy and much more. So Gene, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Yeah, tell people your story, what you do, how you came to be what you do, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have about 15 years experience in software development and project management. Over the past few years, I started to talk about the 3 C's in interviews, actually. So I was doing interviews with potential employers, and they ask about, hey, what we talk about values, right? Company culture. And so the 3 C's, as a leader of teams, I would talk about 3 C's, which were collaboration, coordination, and communication. But then over the years, I started to realize that, customer-centric, continuous improvement are also really essential to building a culture of innovation. And so I just this year I published the book called Lean Agile Mastery, Mastering the 5 C's for Customer-Centric Success. In my book, we talk about the LA5C framework, right? Which again is customer centricity. That is the central C in the framework. Everything revolves around the customer. And then you got collaboration, coordination, communication, and then continuous improvement. And it focuses on building culture. And there's a lot of talk, when you interview for a company or companies, they like to talk about culture, but there's a huge difference. What I realize from what is published on their website as corporate values versus what is actually like what behaviors, right, are actually embedded in that culture. And so what I found is that when all those 5 C's are present, then a lean agile transformation can take place. And so that really creates and drives innovation.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I'm an avid fan of business books, and why hasn't the mainstream heard about the LA5Cs before?
Because it's mine, Chris. Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. And because, there is lean, people who know lean, lean thinking, lean design, or lean Six Sigma, they understand that, right? So continuous improvement, professional manufacturing companies, and they understand lean concepts, right? And then agile is very, very common in the software development world, right? And so there's agile, frameworks, agile Scrum, the Agile Manifesto. It's very, very popular in all global corporations. But I think because I was certified and trained in both Lean Six Sigma and Agile, I realized that these things, it has to go hand in hand. You can't, you know what I mean? I've discovered that 80% of companies fail at transformation efforts, right? And the 20% that do succeed, they have these 5 available, like embedded in their culture, right? It's embedded in their leadership, and that kind of spreads throughout the organization. But agile, it's in agile companies, organizations, you have specific teams, software development teams that practice agile, right? And then there's other teams that might practice, cross-functional teams that may or may not practice agile. But if you want to deliver an amazing customer journey or experience, all those cross-functional teams need to work together seamlessly, right? In order to, at the end, satisfy the customer. You can't just have one team, working very, very well, collaborating, communicating, and, doing all this stuff on their own. They have to be able to do it with the rest of the organization in order to create value for the customer.
And I really love how you use your experience to combine the corporation with the software. And I love the pin the term software is eating the world. So the other question is, what is the LA5C framework a blue ocean strategy? Talk to people about blue ocean, red ocean, all of that.
Yeah, so what I mean by, obviously there's a famous book, right, called the Blue Ocean, and the author talks about, a blue ocean is really one vast full of opportunity, right? It's an open market, whereas a red ocean is there's blood in the water. There's a lot of fish in the sea, right? And so Lean Agile, as I mentioned, people who understand lean, and people who understand agile. They may not, their organizations have different maturity levels, but they understand, right, in what it is. But lean agile is a innovative approach. I do see some like lean agile groups, for example, on LinkedIn. No one's really talking about what lean agile is. It just sounds good, right? They put it together. Again, I've been advocating lean agile transformation for a very long time, but it's just, and I'm glad, so thankful that you have me on the show, because it doesn't, it's very difficult for people to intake or to kind of consume something that's new, because they only understand they only know what they know, right? And so I found myself many times kind of struggling because they're either not willing to listen, or they just don't understand it. They don't want to admit it. I really appreciate this opportunity to kind of spread the word about Lean Agile and the 5 Cs.
And you talked about this idea of culture, which really brings into mind, the late Tony Hsieh, where he really defined culture as an asset and made people aware of, the organizations, what is the culture, which is what you're doing. And the other question is this: when you know, what sort of type of success stories have you seen implementing
Mm-hmm.
your framework in the corporate world or working with different companies, consulting, all of that?
Sure, sure. Yeah, like I said, it's not very common. It's very difficult to achieve a lean agile transformation. But the couple companies that I have had the opportunity to work with have generated some incredible business results, right? So I'll give you the first example. In Korea, there was an institute that provided PDU, Professional Develop Unit, training for engineers, right? It's a government sponsored institute, 20 years in business, and their customer satisfaction was stagnant, right? Like out of 10, they would average like an 8.0. And I had the opportunity living there to deliver a project management training course in English. It was the first time it's ever been done. It was one course over 7 weeks, and the trainees loved it. Right, I'm not patting myself on the back or anything, but they love the idea of that training. And so I talked to the chairman. I said, "Hey, look, why don't we develop a full scale program like this, like 300 program versus just 7 weeks?" At first, they all kind of objected, like, "Oh no, that's not going to work. That's not going to happen." Right, 100%, English only at this institute, that's not going to fly, right? And so I'm like, well, listen, okay, let me get the data. Okay, let me get the data. Give me 3 months, and I'll conduct some research. And so I did what I discuss in my book, right? So voice of the customer programs and development. So what I did is I conducted interviews with hundreds of these trainees. I conducted focus groups. I did surveys, tons and tons of surveys. And ultimately, from all this feedback, we got data, right? But what we discovered was that these trainees were not interested in training. They didn't want to get just PDUs. And the one kind of aha moment that we discovered from the data was that they wanted to be able to compete in the global marketplace, right? So these South Koreans, they work for these, Samsungs and LGs. Not all of them work at these companies, but they want to be deployed overseas. And so a lot of these engineers would be deployed in the Middle East on these engineering, huge projects. But their fear was that their lack of ability to communicate in English, right? And so that was their motivation. They wanted to be able to compete in the global marketplace. And so ultimately, that's what convinced the chairman and the board to say, okay, let's move forward, right? Because I have the data, and we ended up developing the most popular government-sponsored training program in Korea. We multiplied revenues by 75 times, and customer satisfaction went up from 8.0 to 9 after 1 year of launch. And then also we developed technology as well. We had to scale this program because we actually doubled the capacity of the facility. But yeah, revenue multiplication, CSAT, customer satisfaction improvement, and then also continuous improvement, right, with processes and operations.
Yeah. And quick question, because I know it sounds like you offer a variety of consultant service. Your expert opinion, and then you offer services and or products, I'm assuming. And what happens? How do you get buy-in? You mentioned the ability, with the chairman and their ability to compete in the marketplace. How do you get buy-in when you get resistance to these new ideas and concepts?
Really good question. So it's in the data, right? So I can't. A lot of times it's gut instinct, right? But again, you need to try to get some data and some insights to back up that instinct, right? And so I had an instinct, and I actually delivered one class, and it was very, very successful, right? According to the surveys and the feedback that we received. So ultimately, that's why I asked the board and the chairman to give me some time, and let's get the data. That data decision making has to be in place. A lot of organizations and teams, talk about data driven decision making. Many times it's actually very lacking.
Yeah, I love this idea with this data-driven approach, and you're seeing results. Like, you introduce new concept, and basically you show through your results. As we kind of come to the end, we talk about motivation. A lot of these listeners or physicians, they have the why, they want to help people. What's your why, and what are you so passionate about, and how can people contact you to learn more about this framework?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So my why is I want to educate the world about Lean Agile, and specifically the Lean Agile 5C that I published in my book. I believe it's not just about the product, right? It's also about the process, and it's about the culture. And so that's what my book and course is about. And I also offer a coaching program, so that I can help teams and organizations, to implement the LA5C framework and build a true culture of innovation. So I have a website. I've got two websites. Radar book is called Lean Agile Mastery. So the website is Lean Agile. And then you could also just email me at Gene at Radar.
And for the audience out there, let's thank Gene for coming on, talking about this new concept. I learned a lot, and all of his resources will be in the links and show notes. Be sure to check out the book, Lean Agile Mastery. I'm sure it's on Amazon. I'm going to check it out as well. And as well as his social media is on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and email. And all of those will be provided in the show notes. And with that, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast.